Shalom, thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Natasha Kirchak here with ILTV's morning briefing.
Coronavirus infections are continuing to rise, with over 14,325 people now diagnosed with COVID-19 in the state of Israel. That's a rise in 443 infections over the last 24 hours, more than double the increase when compared to just a day earlier. The health ministry says that at least 187 people have now passed away from COVID-19, and 148 are currently in serious condition, 111 of whom are now on ventilators. Another 124 are moderately ill, but the positive news is that more than 4,960 Israelis have now recovered from the deadly virus. The health ministry has now purchased 2.4 million serological tests for the coronavirus, which check for antibodies in the blood that can indicate if a person has had COVID-19 and developed immunity to it. Studies have revealed that asymptomatic carriers could be spreading the disease without even knowing they're infected. And serological tests could help health officials determine what percentage of the population may have been infected. Knowing this will help policymakers decide when and how to reopen the Israeli economy. Serological testing will first be carried out in the ultra-Orthodox city of Bnei Brak, then in communities with high rates of infection, and finally in factories and other places of work. This comes as nurses and doctors are protesting over the fact that they're seeing a decrease in their latest salaries because they've had to spend time in quarantine after coming into contact with infected patients. Quarantine is counted as sick days, which are counted at a reduced rate. And medical professionals say that they shouldn't have to deal with any financial loss when exposure to the coronavirus has become a part of their job. An Israeli border police officer has been injured in a car ramming and stabbing attack at a checkpoint in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, this morning. Police say a Palestinian assailant rammed his van into a border guard at the kiosk checkpoint just near the Ma'ale Adumim settlement, and then proceeded to attack the officer with a pair of scissors after exiting the vehicle. Troops at the scene shot him dead before he was able to throw a pipe bomb at nearby soldiers. The area has now been closed off so sappers can remove the explosive device. The victim, a border guard in his 20s, has sustained moderate wounds and is currently being treated in a Jerusalem hospital. In dramatic surveillance footage of the attack, the young man can be seen initially fighting back against his attacker, shoving him away and running off as other border guards open fire on the assailant, whose identity has not yet been released. This attack comes amid a general dip in the number of terror attacks as a whole in the West Bank during the coronavirus pandemic. At least 62% of the Israeli public supports the brand new Unity Coalition. This, according to a brand new survey released by Israel's Channel 13 News. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Knesset Speaker Benny Gantz announced the signing of a deal just earlier this week, in line with earlier promises to form an emergency government against the coronavirus. And only 22% of Israelis are opposed. The poll shows that support is a bit skewed to one side, however, with 80% of Netanyahu's Likud party voters in support against just 57% of voters for blue and white. And similarly, 41% of Israelis think that Netanyahu will break the rotation agreement. This does align with how half of Benny Gantz's blue and white party split away to the opposition, though. They accuse Gantz of defrauding his voters and abandoning his policies in favor of sitting with an alleged criminal who will undermine the courts, referring to Netanyahu. And leading the charge is former blue and white party number 2, Yair Lapid. Lapid is in line to take up the head of the opposition now, and as such is vowing to fight the new government until its collapse. New government officials reject the accusations, and blue and white MK Chili Tropel says the new government will not push any laws allowing Netanyahu to avoid the High Court of Justice either. Still, while acknowledging criticisms of the deal, Gantz says it would be unthinkable to go back to elections amidst the pandemic, and that they had to put the common good before their personal good. And 2/3 of the country seem to agree.
That's all for now. I'm Natasha Kirchak, and see you later with our main daily broadcast.